Podcast. Rich Keefe. It's the DORK. Podcast. Keefe Davey. It's the DORK. Podcast. Hashtag. It's the hashtag DORK Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. He is Rapple Von Dapple. All hail the king of ginger ale. It's Ryan Davey. Davey, how are you?
Snapping necks, cashing checks.
Love that.
That's what we do.
Good. That's good. We were talking about what we're going to start doing going forward with some of our movie and TV reviews with some of these awards. And another email I got from Jeff, actually during the last episode, the BoJack Horse Award for the unexpected death. Perfect.
I like that. That is good.
Perfect. So we'll do that. He says, I will never forget walking down Fifth Avenue in New York City on my way to work, crying, laughing at the first telling of the BoJack mishap. All right. Very good. A moment in time. So yeah, you never know. A movie might have the BoJack Horse Award. It's possible. So Ryan, this episode is inspired by The Penguin, which just wrapped up season 1. Maybe there'll only be one season. Maybe there'll be more. Who's to say? But it got me thinking about best comic book TV shows, which shockingly, I don't think we've done an episode on. We've done countless episodes on comic book movies. We've ranked the top 50. We've done best DC, best Marvel, all this shit. And then we've done a lot of these shows as standalones. But as far as like putting them all together, Marvel, DC, Image, what other independent comics, because there's been so many of them, you know, lately. Like obviously the Disney Plus has their whole series going of Marvel shows, but there's a ton everywhere you turn. There's a million of them.
So many.
Yes. I have like a crazy long list of honorable mentions as well we can get into like as we go on. But I thought we would each do our own top 10. That way we could talk about a few more of them than than like overlapping it a little bit. Go ahead.
And there's going to be some that like we that aren't on both of our lists that could be on one of your top 10. There again, like I found myself like crossing things out because I would forget. Like I would just list a bunch of shows and like, oh yeah, shit, that one. Or like, oh, that one. And like I would have to like remind myself because you're starting to lose like you forget like this is going to sound weird, but they're so good that you forget their comic book shows.
Yeah. No, there is. And you think of them first and foremost as a TV show. And then you're like, right. Oh, no, that was based off of like an awesome comic. Yeah. You know, some are more obvious than others. So, yeah, I definitely had to do a double take. I really, really like my list. But like like you said, my top 10, I'm sure we'll have 3 or 4 no-brainer overlaps. But that might be it. Like, honestly, like I know there's a couple on my list that I definitely like more than most people do. But it's a fun list to kind of throw together. So I say we just kind of go back and forth. Oh, and also big distinction, live action.
Live action, not animated.
Otherwise, I think between Batman the Animated Series and X-Men the Animated Series and maybe a few other like even Invincible is really good. Like half the list might have been animated. That might be a separate thing that we do another time. So key distinction, live action comic book TV shows.
One thing I think here's an episode idea. If we ever have like a slow month and we can get like a long enough runway, I really think you and I should watch Legion again.
Yes, because that didn't make my list, but I do remember.
And I know it didn't make mine either. But like that's a show. If you look at anyone else's list, it's in like everyone's top 5.
Yeah, probably because it was a good show, but I just remember being like a little confused.
Yes, but we should probably watch that again and review it again.
I'm game. Yeah, I'm game. All right. Why don't we just go back and forth with our number 10s?
Okay.
And then feel free though. So if my number 10 is say your number 7, go ahead and jump in and be like, hey, that's my number. And then we can just talk about it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. All right. So why don't you go first? What is Ryan Davey's 10th best comic book TV show?
And just to prove to you that this is a very strong list at number 10, I have WandaVision.
Ooh. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, a show that like was a little slow to start, but wound up being like kind of consequential into like how things went in the MCU and like a really cool way of telling that story. Which then like, I think Agatha was as good as it was because WandaVision was good, obviously. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 10.
That's a good one. That one is the first of the Disney Plus Marvel shows too,
Yes.
which we weren't sure what to expect. And you're taking movie characters and you're throwing them into a TV world. And like you said, the slow start, they released the first 3 episodes that first night, and you're like, this is kind of weird, but like, I'll see where this is going. And then it just kicked up a notch, and it made Scarlet Witch a great character. It made you actually kind of care about Vision a little bit. And then they created this Agatha character, at least for the screen, it was really good. So yeah, this just missed my list. This was on the honorable mention, but definitely one of the best Disney Plus MCU shows, no doubt. My number 10 is Peacemaker. We talked about it a little bit last episode.
It's my number 9.
Okay, perfect. So second season is incoming. You and I reviewed the first season and we loved it. We loved the Suicide Squad and John Cena's Peacemaker. Obviously, this is a spinoff with him. But what the show did so well was, I mean, the action and the comedy is top notch. But they introduced this vigilante character who steals like every scene that he is in. So like Peacemaker's crew is good. Some characters we'd seen before in the Suicide Squad, others we hadn't. But it's just a great series with weird DC characters. I don't know, it's kind of their version of Deadpool. Like, he doesn't talk to the camera or anything, but as far as like the violence and the comedy, it's like that.
But I do love the, what's it you said, like, peace, but I'll kill every man, woman, and child to get peace. Like that. Yeah. He says it in the Suicide Squad, but I love that. And it's so slapstick stupid. Like the character, like Eagly.
It's awesome. And Cena's really good. Like, I don't think there's even a debate. John Cena is better than The Rock in movies and TV shows.
He's legitimately funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think The Rock, because of it's our generation, I think The Rock was a better wrestler, but I think kids younger than us would actually tell you that he isn't. The Rock was great, and like The Rock on the mic, I think was still some of the best stuff in wrestling. I'm not even taking a shit on his movie career. His movie career has been like not, the best movies, but they're great popcorn movies for the most part.
Yeah.
And all of that shit. And he's quick and all that stuff. But Cena's kind of next level. Like that Ricky Stenicki movie that came out. Like, he carried that movie. He was awesome. He's like the only good part in that movie.
Yeah. And you had, what's his name? Mike from Dave and Zac Efron in it, and he carried them. Like, those are like
dominated. He dominated them. Zac Efron himself would have won the Friars Helmet Award for just most distracting piece of wardrobe. Like, he didn't belong, or he would have been My Shit's Fine Award. He was like, you're not even supposed to be in this movie. All right, so anyway, Peacemaker, can't wait for season 2. So Davey has Peacemaker at number 9. My number 9, I'm going with Riverdale. Riverdale was a goddamn blast. Now it gets sideways, it gets crazy, and it's one of those shows that, again, they're comic book shows, so they should be probably kind of weird, and it just goes up and up and up in like intensity and like craziness. I thought years ago about doing an episode of like the 10 craziest things to happen on Riverdale, and they would all be like the most unbelievable things ever. So
there was one time, and I think I've said this before, like I came in and Rye was watching Riverdale because she was into it as much as you were.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was like a homemade like rocket ship that took off, and I was like, what sci-fi show are you watching? She's like, no, it's Riverdale. I go, there's fucking spaceships in Riverdale?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The first 2, I wouldn't say ever the show is actually like grounded, but like the first 2 was a little bit more like, oh, like that's cool. Then like this is weird. And these are like kind of high school hijinks, and like a little bit further. Then it goes a little bit further. They eventually even tied in with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Kiernan Shipka from Netflix, because she lives in, is it like Sunnydale, or she lives in like a town over from them, and they actually did tie it in later seasons. But the show is absolutely bonkers. It's a classic CW show. Like, everybody in the cast is ridiculous good looking. They all have like crazy skills. They're all really good at stuff. It ran for 7 seasons. So that was the other thing that I had a hard time with this list is, do you just take the shows that had like one awesome season, but like, do you overlook a show that maybe had 7 seasons and not all 7 were good, but it still ran for 7 seasons and like 4 of them were really good? So that's why I got Riverdale on my list, from Archie comics and all that shit with Betty and Veronica. And
that's one of those shows you forget that Archie, like, I remember that from like, I always thought of him as like a Bazooka Joe kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was actual like a DC comic, right?
Yeah, it was. Was it DC? I forget, but they've had all kinds of crossovers. I feel like
Yeah.
Archie's crossed over with like the Punisher. He's like crossed over with like Predator. Like he's crossed over like all kinds of shit.
That's fucking
Anyway,
crazy.
that's so let's go to your number 8.
My number 8 is Moon Knight,
Oh,
which I really enjoyed that show.
okay.
There were some now the flaws in this. There are some episodes that were a little slow.
Yeah.
But I love this idea of like Arthur Knight, and I love like the split personalities. And I think there was Oscar Isaac is such a good actor. That was a show for me that was like I looked forward to watching every week.
This is one of the more like real standalone shows. Like there was almost no tie-in yet. And I wonder if we ever see him again.
I
Like
hope
you put
so.
him in this universe. Yeah, I kind of hope we do too.
I mean,
But
if you see him in Secret War, I mean, he's got to be in there, right?
I think you could. Yeah. I mean, if you're just trying to throw characters out there, like this is one thing that they should do a better job of than originally. So like when they did Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, they tried getting as many characters as possible, but they ignored all of the Netflix characters. Now, if you're doing something that big, like why wouldn't you get She-Hulk and Moon Knight and all these guys?
Marvel Rivals, the Overwatch type game that Marvel is putting out just recently, I think like last week. This game launches in less than a month. So like on December 6th, it actually launches. But Moon Knight, they announced that Moon Knight's going to be in playable characters. So
no shit.
How about that?
Yeah, he's a cool character. And there was the who wrote it? There was the one Moon Knight run. Do I have it on? Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire wrote.
I knew it was I was going to say Jeff John, but I knew it wasn't that.
Yeah, Jeff Lemire wrote a Moon Knight run that is fantastic if you're looking for some comics. All right, number 8 on my list is another CW show. I'm going with Arrow, which sort of kind of it launched the whole Arrowverse, as it were, where it tied in the Flash, it tied in Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, like a couple. It was insane. Like they tied in all these shows. It ran for 8 seasons, and by the end, it definitely kind of lost a lot of people. But they just kept pumping the show out there. I do maintain the first 2 seasons of Arrow are like as good as almost any comic book kind of show. Stephen Amell as the Green Arrow, Oliver Queen. They also do a good job as the series goes on. More and more DC characters, and they only had like I think the clearance to use so many. Like I think they walked back some of them that were like I think there might have been an episode where it was like Harley Quinn or something, and they're like, no, I can't do that anymore. But like Deathstroke is like a big part of this series. He has like a whole cast of characters that pop in. Remember Constantine from the NBC show? They tie him in. And then later on, they do all these like massive crossover events. They do like Crisis on Infinite Earths, basically. So it becomes super comic booky as it goes. The first couple seasons, though, are pretty kind of street level, you know, how Arrow. They also tell it in a time jumping kind of thing. So it's like how he became Arrow and like that whole origin story, but then it jumps back to present day. I highly recommend the first 2 seasons, maybe even 3. At that point, it does become pretty hit or miss. Plus, the CW was doing like 23 episode seasons. So it's just fucking
that is wild.
Much. It's too much.
Yeah.
Some of these other shows literally would do 8, right? Like we're talking about. So it's hard to compare the two, but really fun show. I don't think it gets the credit it deserves.
No, and I will show you this too. I will share my screen briefly too.
All right.
I'm going to share my screen. The one thing I've always appreciated about this show, I don't know if you can see, you can share my screen. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can see it. That, my friend, and you can see that that's Stephen Amell.
Stephen Amell. Yep.
Proper bow form. Like actually like shooting a bow correctly.
I think you would enjoy this. He clearly, and he's also dabbled into the world of wrestling. Like he's
he's on that show Heels, right?
So he did the show Heels. He also competed in New Japan and in AEW for a little bit. And he's like friends with Cody Rhodes, who also played a villain on the show in a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And he's a fucking crazy athlete. Like some of the shit that he was doing, you could tell it was him. And this guy clearly went to a lot of fucking archery classes.
And
'cause
the
he looks
only thing I
smart.
would say is his bow hand. You shouldn't have it like your knuckles should be like flat. Like you should hold a bow like this, not like
Oh,
with a fist. Like you should like kick your hand out. But other than that, that guy's the draw hand is perfect.
yeah.
Shoulder
He's a
rotation, straight back. You're not kicking your elbow out. You know, if you look at some of Renner's stuff, like his elbow's kind of out like
Yeah.
this instead of like
Yeah.
straight back. So I'm with it.
Dude, they also got both Black Canary and White Canary on this show. Va-va-voom. It is
Whoa,
it's sick. And so like Barry Allen I think it was season 2 popped up, and then that spun off the Flash series, which was actually really good. I considered it for this list, but I didn't put it on there. And then a bunch of the characters that were on that show also spun off into the Legends of Tomorrow show, which was just like crackers. Like if you just like chaos, like a lot of different characters and a lot of different like wild comic book setting scenes.
Or something
And,
like you've never heard of, like comic book characters that you've like never heard of before.
100%. 100% where you'd look them up and you're like, oh shit, that was a real DC character. They'd throw those in there, and like the visual effects were like just good enough, right? Like they weren't like they weren't like bad, but they obviously weren't like great. It was a CW show. But anyway, Arrow comes in at number 8 on my list. What do you got? Oh no, you did Moon Knight.
I already did, yeah. So for number 7 on my list, Hawkeye.
I like Hawkeye.
I like Hawkeye too.
Yeah.
And it's a Christmas show.
Yeah.
It takes place during Christmas.
I can watch it again maybe this holiday season.
You get 2 Hawkeyes. You know who I am going to watch it again this holiday season, and I'm going to have my daughter Quinn watch it because she loves a good girl action star. She would love.
Oh, you got a good one there.
She loves dogs.
Yeah.
You know, she would just love this show.
I feel like, and I know people aren't going to sign off on this. Haley Steinfeld,
yes,
who plays Hawk.
Kate Bishop.
Yeah, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye. She's going out with Josh Allen. That's a better power couple than Kelsey and Swift.
I will sign off on that. I will get that notarized and sign off on that.
That's a good, like, nobody even talks about that power couple. That's a good couple.
That's a good power couple. And also, Florence Pugh steals the show in Hawkeye.
Excellent.
The macaroni and cheese scene, when she's got the hot sauce.
Yeah.
Great scene.
She's going to be so good in Thunderbolts. You can already
So
tell.
good.
No, I love Hawkeye. That just missed my list. That was probably number 11 on my list.
What is your 7?
This is a tough one to grade, but Jessica Jones.
They say it didn't miss my list because of that reason, because season 2 was so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil what I thought of season 3.
Oh, save it.
Season 1 was really good.
Season 1 might be the best individual season of a comic book show. And that's why I had to put it on my list, even though season 2 is one of the worst. And without tipping my hand too much, season 3 I thought was actually solid, but like not. It probably split the difference. You know what I'm saying? But the reason why I have it there is like the fucking first season with Purple Man was crazy. It was like it blew my mind that I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna have Arrow and Riverdale, which certainly didn't have all strong seasons, and then also considering other shows that only had one. So like if Jessica Jones didn't have a season 2 and a 3, like I think it would make almost everybody's list. But I understand why it pulls it off of it. But anyway, that ultimately I had like one version of this list where it wasn't on there, and then I'm like, no, I gotta have it on there. So I ended up putting it number 7.
And it left the season 2 killed it for me.
I get it.
You did not make it. So what are we on to 6 now?
Yeah, you're 6th.
This is the strongest 6 I've ever put on any list. And I hope it gets a season 2. Sandman.
Ooh, that is also my number 6.
Is it really? 666?
It's fucking 666.
There you go.
So I think it was supposed to get a second season, but then I believe didn't Neil Gaiman come under some hot water?
No.
I thought Neil, you might want to check that. I think Neil Gaiman might have had an issue.
Did he have an issue?
I think so. I don't know. Like you read stuff all the time. You don't know what's what. But yeah, season 1 we did a standalone on, and it was incredible. Like it blew my mind. It was so well casted. It's a great comic, and then it was so well adapted.
Oh yeah,
he did, right? So I don't even know if that.
Yeah,
it kind of sucks because he was like a really creative guy and like a pretty, as far as comic book writers were concerned, he was one of the best.
So Here's my question, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong. I want to know, like, honestly, like, if I sign an NDA, but then come out, what's the legal ramifications there? Do you now owe me money?
Yeah,
You have to pay that back,
probably.
right?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, I just feel like that's a lot of lawsuits, and
It's like 3. It was 3. So, but like that's what I'm saying. Like,
no. I'm saying the NDA versus no NDA. NDA. Then you said this. I think it probably at that point comes down to whoever has the better lawyer. Would be my guess.
or lawyers, and that, right?
But all that to say, the Sandman definitely was insanely good TV.
Very good TV.
I'll give you that one. All right. So how about that? We did not see each other's lists ahead of time, and both locked in at number 6. Pretty good.
How about that?
All right, number 5.
Probably the strongest, like all the way down the list. Like the strongest number 5 ever to be put on a list. Watchmen.
Ooh, that's my number 3.
Mm.
Also a tough one to grade. Like Sandman, only one season, and it was excellent. There was no bad parts of Watchmen. We did a standalone on this. You can check the archives as well. What a sick adaptation, because the book is maybe the greatest comic book ever written. And then the movie, I think, is actually decent. I think Zack Snyder actually did probably as well as you could do if you're told you can only do a movie. It probably is better off as a series, but they didn't just take the book, they didn't just take the movie. They sort of like did their own thing while like creating some new characters, playing homage to some of the old characters. It was like so incredibly done. It kind of blew my mind.
This is the only Neil Gaiman adaptation where I think he wouldn't never watch it, but if he did, he might not hate it.
Oh, Alan Moore.
What did I say?
Did you say Neil Gaiman? I thought you said Neil Gaiman.
I meant Alan Moore. I still got Neil Gaiman on my, but I think Alan Moore would watch this and not be like, this is bullshit, or like take my name off it. He'll never watch it, but
it was Lindelof, right? Damon Lindelof, who did Lost and The Leftovers and Watchmen. I think the guy knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. And I think that's probably just its own thing, right? Like I think it's one season and that'll do it.
And I think that was people were cool with it. They're like, yeah, they just make it one season. It doesn't have to be anymore. And the way it ended, was like chef's kiss.
Whew. Crazy show.
Where it's like it had like an Inception kind of like ending.
Yeah.
It's
so cool. My number 5, sort of the opposite. It was not one season. It was 11 seasons on AMC. I'm going with The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Because at one point, The Walking Dead was must-see TV. The Walking Dead, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was Game of Thrones, but as far as I'm concerned, like Sunday night, I had to watch it. Sunday night. This also, I think, and I probably told this on the podcast before, but because of The Walking Dead, I've now gone back into comics and reading comics semi-regularly because I watched like the first 2 seasons of the show. They're like, hey, it's based on a comic. I read all of The Walking Dead, caught all the way up, and then continued to follow it. And then from there, I was like, well, this is great. What else should I read? And then I started reading like every essential comic book that has been out. Obviously, there were some down seasons in The Walking Dead, but the first, I don't know, 5 were insanely must-watch to me. And then they also, I forget off the top of my head if it was like 8 or 9. They had an episode or a season that it like came back. Like it came back and was good. And then the ending is kind of whatever it is. It ended up being a bunch of spin-offs and everything else. But I just think it needs to be recognized on this list. So I got it number 5.
We down to 4 now?
Yeah, what's your number 4?
Penguin.
Samesies. Penguin.
Fuck, this show's good. We've talked about this enough, I think, at this point, but tip to tail piece of shit. Like tip to tail, like from start to finish, this show was immaculately done.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it's funny, kind of similar, but very different than Peacemaker, where you take a side character on a great movie, and then you're like, hey, they're gonna get their own show. And then you're like, all right, like let's see how this goes. And then it went so well. And it was very much that world that they were in. You got to learn way more about Oswald Cobb, but then bringing in Sophia is like bringing in like Vigilante or something, where it's like, all right, now you have another character that you care about even more.
The
And then
secondary character in a secondary character show kills it.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just fun, like, and you just want more. And whether you get these characters again in the Batman 2, or if they make a Sophia spinoff, or if they make a Penguin season 2, awesome. Just amazing. I'm with you.
Just great. So we're on to our 3 because that was both of our 4s now, right? So now
That's
we're on
both
to
of our
3.
4s. My 3 I already said was Watchmen. So what's your 3?
Loki.
Oh yes, Loki, very good.
I very much enjoyed Loki. Again, your supporting cast did a very, very good job here. Whether it be Owen Wilson or so Sylvie, I forget her name.
Yep, Lady Loki.
Lady Loki.
Yep.
So this was like a fun show too, and really got to like the character of Loki. You don't ever really know the chaotic neutral, he of the liminal spaces in the Marvel universe. You don't know if he's good or bad, and I don't think he does either.
Mm-hmm.
And a great, if it is a send off for Loki, a great way to end it.
Yeah, well, and it ended up being massive. Like the series was such a big part of Deadpool and Wolverine, which ends up being, I don't know if it's saved Marvel, because I think Marvel's doing okay, but like it, it needed that kick in the ass, but it also, like, that sort of plot point allowed it all to happen. And now, like, all these movies going forward, like it ended up being such a vital part. Like some of these other shows are fun and they do this, but like talking about like impact on the whole universe, like Loki was at the top.
Well, I think, and again, to like speak to like the poetic Edda and Loki. So like Loki being the character who is part giant, part Asgardian, and yet no one claims him. So he's kind of stuck in between two worlds. At the very end of the show, is literally stuck between two worlds.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I think that's some good writing.
That's apropos.
That is apropos. Yeah.
It's apropos. All right, what's your number 2?
I have The Boys at number 2.
Same. We have a similar list. The 4
Look at that,
seasons.
and I bet our number 1 is the same.
Yes, we ended up having like 4 of the same ones, which is actually hilarious.
Yeah, and like almost in like the same spot.
4 in the same spot. Yes,
yeah,
100%.
The Boys, to me, while a slight dip in productivity,
yes,
like if you think of like a good quarterback, like a Tom Brady, who had kind of like he threw 35 touchdown passes this year instead of 40.
Yeah,
kind of year. Or like Barry Bonds, he only hit 60 home runs this year instead of 80.
What happened? Yeah,
what happened? Oh, he's washed, right? So, but this, in addition to like, I lump in the Boys kind of universe too. So like Gen V has been really good, and will be. So Gen V's coming back, right?
Yep.
And I'm interested to see, because you saw the Gen V characters in the Boys in this recent season. So that'll be interesting to see how they work.
Definitely
together.
Definitely.
But a show that's just so over the top and such a great parody of like every show we've mentioned before. And just kind of like it's a great satire, I think.
It's pretty hilarious. And then Homelander might be the greatest character on this entire list. Like he is
right.
Just knocks your head back.
I mean,
so there are 4 seasons and counting on Amazon Prime. I would say between Walking Dead is longer, but The Boys and Walking Dead are probably 2 of the longest comics I've read start to finish. Like there's a lot of issues. Actually, I got it behind me. Like that whole stretch there is.
And I'm interested to see like where this goes, like where the show goes now. I think like there was a little bit on the nose with like stuff they were doing last season.
But they really leaned in. I wonder now if they'll move on a little bit, but
I think for the sake of all of us, please. Like we get it. Like the parody like is happening. So like we don't need to worry. We don't need to see it. We get it. Like, can we do something else?
Right. Just have Homelander smoke some people.
So if we were to do our like greatest villains list again, like, because we did that years ago, and I think Homelander's he's a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, I'm just like looking at my list. Homelander would be a 1 seed.
For greatest villains,
Ozymandias would be a big seed. I guess the Penguin technically is a villain.
Yeah.
Like Negan, Purple Man,
Kingpin,
definitely a good one. before we get to number one, which I think we both know what our number one is, some of the other shows I considered Preacher. Speaking of The Boys, speaking of Garth Ennis, Preacher, good show on AMC. I liked it a lot. I just don't remember liking it quite as much as the shows that made my list.
Also, it was like one of those things where like I love the casting too. Who was the guy who played the vampire?
Oh, I forget
Irish
his
guy.
name. Yeah, he was good.
He was really good.
But that was to me a really different. Like that's on par with Watchmen as far as like
hard to do,
difficult show to do, and that not to be the book is better guy, but that book is a lot better.
It's like the book. Like the book is really, really good. Like
it's one of the best.
One of the best I've ever read. But there's other shows like we didn't mention Gotham, The Punisher, Agents of Shield. I know you like Titans for a hot minute.
I did. Titans also finished their last season was the worst season, but Titans was a lot of fun.
Again, Legion is a show that like we got to watch again. It's on everyone's like top list, but we mentioned Arrow, but not the Flash.
Yep, Flash.
What was the show? And then there's like the old shows that were like, you know, the old Batman, the Hulk, the Wonder Woman shows, like, you know, those had their time.
Old Flash, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like the old Flash that was in like the 90s.
Yeah, the old Flash, there was like the Lois and Clark, Dean Cain, Terry Hatcher, Superman. There was Smallville, which I never really got into, but I bet I would have liked it.
I bet I would have liked that too.
Yeah.
So our number one, Agent Carter.
So another movie or show that people slept on because this was the time where they released like the DC network and then they folded it. Swamp Thing.
Did you watch it?
I finally got a hold of it.
One episode, there was like
no, it's 10. It's 10 episodes. I finally got a hold of it. It was on Prime. It like popped up on one of the streams, maybe Tubi. Actually, honest to God, it might be Tubi.
Okay, I gotta watch it.
It's great. I considered it for the top 10. I like Swamp Thing anyway, but they did a cool they did a pretty good take on it.
But I remember it coming out and people raving about it and then be like, oh, just kidding. Like you can't,
it's gone.
You're not going to show it to anybody. Like, what are you talking about? Like everyone, like all the critic reviews that came out early were like, this is amazing.
Well, what was really strange to me is when DC went down and then HBO Max gobbled up a bunch of the DC properties and they grabbed Titans, they grabbed what was that other Doom Patrol, they grabbed a few other ones and they didn't do anything with Swamp Thing, so like it wasn't streaming there. But that one was good.
Like you kept Doom Patrol, but
I don't get it.
On Swamp Thing?
Swamp Thing was great. Dead Boy Detectives, which is a spinoff of The Sandman, pretty good on Netflix. Agent Carter wasn't bad, and Agatha, which we just did. Agatha was good. I thought it was pretty good. But obviously, number one, Ryan, on our top 10 comic book TV shows, the live action, of course, would be
Daredevil.
Daredevil's awesome.
Has not fallen off. I think of certain characters like Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck, I honestly believe, is one of the best on-screen Batman we've ever, if not the best on-screen Batman, Bruce Wayne we've seen. And to that end, like Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, like they're perfect casting.
Awesome.
And we talked about this last week too. I love the fact that he's like, I'm not letting anybody else play this character.
Yeah.
Like this is mine.
I got that. And so I look at it this way. The 3 seasons that were released on Netflix, awesome show. We did our top 50 TV shows of all time. And this was in my top 15, I think. Like, I love the show. If the Disney Plus version, which is called Daredevil Born Again, named after one of the great comics ever, if it's really good, I'll include it, and if it's not, I'll be like, no, that's the Netflix. The Netflix one.
The Netflix. We'll forever talk about the Netflix Daredevil.
That's right.
But I do believe that. I remember, like they started filming it, and then they shut it down, and then a bunch of I think it was around the time. This might have been the way, because remember Disney Plus was like, we don't want like R-rated stuff on our platform.
You're like, well,
we don't.
You're gonna need to.
And then they kind of merged the Hulu Disney Plus thing, and now they're like, okay, well, look, it's on. Like we can do this.
Oh yeah, like I'm watching Deadpool and Wolverine on Disney Plus, so you can do whatever the fuck you want now on Disney Plus.
That's right.
But they also
whatever the hell They can say whatever the hell they want. It's the adult tour.
You just got to plug in your little code. It's the adult tour. And so this was funny. We were doing this as we were doing like the news where Daredevil, they slowly but surely starting adding all of like the stunt directors and cast of the Netflix. At first they're like, we're just doing like Charlie Cox and whatever. And then it's like,
and
all right, we're bringing Karen Page and Foggy back, and Punisher's coming back, Kingpin's coming back. All the stunt directors are coming back. It's like, thank Christ. You just do that show. That show's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so there you go. Real quick. My 1 through 10, I'm going Daredevil, The Boys, Watchmen, The Penguin, The Walking Dead, The Sandman, Jessica Jones, Arrow, Riverdale, and Peacemaker. Davies' top 10 is
Daredevil, The Boys, Loki, Penguin, Watchmen, Sandman, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Peacemaker, WandaVision.
excellent. Let us know what your list is, and if any that we forgot, dorkpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram @dorkpodcast. Next week, Rye. Oh, yeah. How's the Movember? What's the update?
I'm glad you asked.
Yes, of course.
See how that was seamless, right? I'm glad you asked. We are just over halfway through the month, Richard, and I am happy to report that we have hit and surpassed our monthly goal of $2,000. So thank you, everybody, for continuing to pitch in and helping out and raising money and awareness for this wonderful thing. But the month isn't over. We're not done yet.
Keep going.
And
keep going.
If we hit $5,000, if we hit 5, what should the prize be?
Probably naked episode.
Naked, yep, shirtless episode.
Everyone's both just naked for the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Now make that 10. Make
Ryan.
that the $10,000 one.
10,000 Davey and L do a naked episode.
Naked episode.
Yep. And we'll finally start the Dork Podcast OnlyFans. Yep.
Yep. If we raise $100,000, we will come to your house and do the episode.
Yes. Hell yeah. Right. Next week, maybe Alien Romulus.
Or we could check out the new Dune show.
Oh, is that all out or is it like weekly?
I think it just started. I think it's weekly. I think it just started though.
All right.
We can check it out.
Yeah, Dune Prophecy, I think it is.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give that a rip too. All right, but we'll let you know for sure at Dork Podcast on Twitter and Instagram what we decide. In the meantime, tell a friend, tell a dork, and hit up Davey's Movember page. Just go to his Twitter @RVonD. He's got the link right there. Give if you can, or at least repost it and all that other stuff if you can. That'll do it. Oh, hit us up on YouTube as well. You can subscribe and watch the shows live on Monday nights, and then after the fact as well. And you can always send us your should I have bought this into dorkpodcast@gmail.com. All right, promise me a million times over you'll never do another rule.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not going to promise you that.
The hashtag Dork Podcast.